Japanese fishing and research vessels that were the first ones to begin reporting sightings of these creatures slash this creature. Still unknown. I don't know if you guys came across in your research, is a human fish, which was traditionally represented as having somewhat of a grotesque combination of a fish's body and a human-like face. So another sort of sea humanoid creature.
For years, the internet has circulated an image of a massive white shadow gliding beneath the ice of Antarctica. A being nearly 100 feet long, with deep eye sockets and a 5-fingered hand pressing against the ocean current. The crowd laughed it off almost instantly, dismissing it as a cheap Photoshop hoax. But the truth may be far darker. That online legend may have been nothing more than a smokescreen hiding a bloody real-world encounter. According to several leaked claims, this creature was entirely flesh and bone, and it was torn apart by the steel winch system of an industrial fleet. Though none of it has been confirmed, the recovered tissue sample may have carried a genetic structure matching primates by as much as 80%. Was it merely a mindless sea monster? Or beneath the frozen waters of Antarctica, was a brutal hunt already targeting a parallel branch of human evolution? Human maritime history is filled with records of sea monsters. From the yellow journals of 18th century Western explorers, people once sketched the kraken and giant squids smashing the hulls of wooden ships. Strange creatures have always left traces in the past, but the giant entity beneath Antarctica carries a brutal logical blind spot. For hundreds of years, ships carved through the Southern Ocean. Countless ice-breaking expeditions pushed deep into polar waters, and yet, not a single document, drawing, or rumor ever mentioned it. It does not exist in history. This creature is completely absent. Its appearance only erupted suddenly in late November 2007. That timing was not random. It strangely matched the moment the Japanese government launched JARPA II, a large-scale oceanographic program that sent massive processing fleets deep into Antarctic waters. As soon as those steel-hulled ships anchored in sub-zero seas, anonymous reports began spreading online. The rumors described a pale white shadow, moving silently beneath the black ice. Its body measured up to nearly 100 feet long. To imagine the scale, it was roughly the length of a Boeing 737's main body, drifting hundreds of feet below the surface. But it did not resemble any whale ever recorded. No scales, no dorsal fin. Its skin was pale white, smooth and slick. On its head were 2 deep, hollow eye sockets, half hidden in the murky water. Observers quickly gave it a name, Ningen, a Japanese word that literally means human. At first, marine experts and internet debunking communities quickly dismissed the story. Their explanations were extremely simple. Some believed it was only an optical illusion, a case of pareidolia, where the human brain turns the random shape of an underwater iceberg into a face. Others argued it was merely the shadow of a rare albino whale, distorted by a camera lens through grainy, disturbed water. But those natural explanations began to collapse when more specific physical details from the scene were leaked. On an internal forum for seafarers, an anonymous former sailor calling himself Kato shared what he claimed was a first-hand experience from the bridge during a night watch. What haunted the crew was not the enormous size of the white mass. The most terrifying detail came when the entity raised one arm close to the surface. Through the powerful searchlights of the trawler, they clearly saw 5 long, pale fingers. The finger joints bent slowly. That hand was pressing against the water, swimming against the ocean current. That movement destroyed the drifting ice theory completely. A block of ice cannot generate its own force and move against the current of the ocean. It also ruled out an albino whale or deep-sea squid. The way those 5 fingers opened, folded, and created resistance underwater required deliberate muscle structure and a complex motor nervous system. That motion did not follow the inertia of an inanimate object drifting through the sea. It was the result of a living creature, fully controlling its own body under the pressure of freezing water. Conspiracy researchers quickly seized on this detail. They argued that the thousands of feet of depth and the violent snowstorms of the Southern Ocean formed the perfect natural curtain. A prehistoric sea monster had been hiding there for millions of years, and now the massive mechanical noise from the JARPA II fleet had accidentally awakened it. At first, that theory seemed to explain why Ningen had appeared so suddenly. But when placed against biology, it exposed a devastating flaw. If a nearly 100-foot primate-shaped creature had truly been swimming around the Antarctic ice shelves since prehistoric times, the chance that it avoided all human observation for centuries would be zero. A biological mass that enormous would need to surface for air, need hunting space, and need to interact with the ecosystem. So, why was it never recorded by 19th century European expeditions? Why was it never picked up by Cold War submarine sonar systems? Once every coincidence is stripped away, one core question remains. Was that nearly 100-foot mass of flesh truly a newly awakened monster? Or was its appearance part of an arranged event? If it had really hidden at the bottom of the ocean for millions of years, why did this giant creature choose to rise and reveal itself on the exact day the Japanese government placed its most advanced biological analysis systems aboard industrial ships? Once there was confirmation that a massive entity with abnormal biological traits was swimming beneath the Antarctic ice shelf, one physical barrier appeared. How could humans reach a living creature that existed at deadly depth and pressure? The JARPA II fleet was the answer. And the giant drill meant to pierce the black ice was none other than the flagship Nisshin Maru. On the surface, this vessel, weighing more than 8,000 tons, was known to the world as a whale research and processing ship. But in reality, its internal design was far more complex and far darker. It was a floating biological analysis factory. Hidden beneath its thick steel shell were lower compartments containing gene sequencing systems, biomedical laboratories, and high-powered freezing units. The detection systems aboard the Nisshin Maru were not built for ordinary fishing. Multi-beam sonar screens continuously fired signals through the murky water. Then the radar picked up massive black forms. They were not swimming alone. The scan data showed them moving in organized groups. The most unusual detail, the one that froze the entire radar crew, was the thermal signature. In the depths of Antarctica, where the water remains near freezing, those enormous black shapes gave off a high-temperature signal. They were warm-blooded animals. The temperature difference was so clear that it completely ruled out interference from submerged icebergs or ocean currents. The approach began. Steel winch cables were lowered into the water. These were armored cables as thick as a grown man's wrist, with enough pulling force to drag a military tank uphill. According to a leaked report from a Japanese internal network platform, posted by a technician calling himself Dr. S, the encounter did not unfold like an ordinary hunt. The steel winch system caught on an obstruction with enormous mass. The sudden tension made the entire hydraulic system on deck scream. Then, from beneath the water, came the sound of something tearing apart. The winch cables retracted, dragging a blood-soaked mass onto the deck. It was not a whale, it was only a massive slab of flesh, ripped from a far larger body by the steel cables. Under the cold lights of the processing factory, the tissue revealed features that contradicted everything known about marine ecology. It had no scales at all. It also lacked the slick, fatty structure typical of whale blubber. The pale white skin was dense and highly elastic. Visually, it looked almost exactly like human skin soaked in a bathtub for days, but enlarged dozens of times. The tissue showed no twitching reaction and no visible pain receptors. Its surface leaked a mucus-like fluid with powerful antifreeze properties. The entire butchering process aboard the Nisshin Maru was immediately suspended. The strange tissue was not sent to the commercial cold storage hold. It was sealed and moved directly into the biomedical laboratory below deck. Protein analyzers and gene sequencing systems were activated at once. The results returned after several hours did not only break every rule of marine evolution, they also delivered a fatal blow to the understanding of the scientists on board. The genetic structure of that waterlogged flesh did not belong to any classified marine mammal. The scanner reported a match of up to 80% with primate DNA sequences. That data locked every vague theory into place. A warm-blooded creature, elastic, scaleless skin, a five-fingered hand swimming against the current, and now, a primate genetic structure. The clearest physical evidence was not in blurry photos online. It was bleeding on the sterile metal tray of Japanese intelligence. The leaders of JARPA II knew exactly what they had recovered. It was not a fantasy monster. It was the body of a creature closely related to humanity itself. At that point, a basic political logic appeared. If a nation held an invaluable biological gold mine and physical proof of a giant primate species beneath the deep sea, The most natural response would be to announce it and claim global scientific prestige. But Tokyo did not do that. If the Japanese government was truly hiding a parallel branch of human evolution beneath the deck of the Nisshin Maru, why would it mobilize an entire cyber intelligence system to release blurry images to the public, turning the greatest discovery of the century into a cheap internet joke called Ningen? When a nation holds biological evidence of a giant marine primate, the natural response is to secure the site and reveal the discovery in order to claim scientific standing. But Japan's intelligence elite made the opposite move. Instead of bringing that tissue sample with an 80% primate genetic match into the light, they deliberately turned it into an absurd internet joke. To understand the cruelty of that move, the online world at the end of 2007 must be seen clearly. At the very moment the steel winch of the Nisshin Maru tore into that enormous mass of flesh beneath Antarctica, a media phenomenon exploded. Thousands of anonymous posts appeared almost simultaneously on 2channel, Japan's largest anonymous platform. Their content was strikingly uniform, eerie oral legends paired with a few blurry black and white images of a nearly 100-foot giant mermaid called Ningen. The public took the bait. Curiosity spread around the world, turning Ningen into one of the most famous creepypastas of the 2000s. Crowds eagerly shared the blurry images, then just as quickly mocked them and labeled them cheap edits. But when independent cybersecurity experts began peeling back the metadata behind this sudden explosion, they found an unusual trace. The publishing speed of the first posts exceeded the physical limits of human typing. Hundreds of new threads with images and detailed stories were created almost instantly. This was not the natural curiosity of internet users. This was a large-scale automated information seeding campaign. More importantly, when the anonymous IP ranges were traced backward, their source did not lead to the communication satellites of the fleet in the Southern Ocean. The routing trail led straight to a high-security server cluster located in the center of Tokyo. The Ningen event on the internet was not a random urban legend. It was a psychological manipulation campaign built by an intelligence agency. In intelligence and security circles, this tactic is called muddying the waters. Imagine scattering tens of thousands of fake bills across a crowded street, then throwing one real bill among them. People will casually step on the real bill because their brains have already decided that everything on the ground is worthless paper. Tokyo applied exactly that principle. They understood that on an industrial fleet with thousands of personnel, the risk of leaks about the bleeding tissue-carrying primate genes could never be fully eliminated. Confiscating every camera or cutting off the crew's satellite communications would only raise international suspicion. Instead of trying to stop the leak, they built an information shield. They deliberately planted the image of a pale, impossible monster in the public mind before the physical truth from the ship could escape. Thanks to the server cluster in Tokyo, the trap closed perfectly. If any technician aboard the Nisshin Maru had dared to leak a photo or video of the flesh in the freezer hold, the public would have turned away immediately. The crowd would automatically see it as another Photoshop stunt riding the 2channel trend. The truth was buried, not by hiding it, but by making it look exactly like a fraud. The Tokyo server cluster and the 2007 disinformation campaign proved one cold reality. Ningen was never a mindless sea monster wandering around, waiting to be photographed. Its existence came with a national intelligence network. If Japan's fleet had merely recovered the body of a mutated whale by accident, they would not have needed to mobilize an entire cybersecurity system to manipulate global opinion. The fact that they staged such an elaborate performance leads to only one conclusion. The real purpose of JARPA II was never environmental research. Whatever primate gene creature was living thousands of feet below the surface must have held a value so immense that a technological power was willing to risk its maritime reputation to cut it apart in the dark. What was truly hidden in the fat and blood of this creature that Japan would defy every natural law just to hunt it down? The 80% match with primate genetic structure from the bleeding tissue on the deck of the Nisshin Maru was not a technical error from a protein scanner. It did not represent some random biological deformity born from industrial waste or moss-covered conspiracy theories. This data was a blade driven straight into a shocking evolutionary possibility, a hypothesis mainstream science has always tried to avoid: the aquatic ape hypothesis. According to some independent biologists, the DNA results decoded from Antarctica raise a possibility that could knock humanity's entire understanding of itself off balance. Ningen is not a deep-sea monster. It is flesh and bone evidence of a branch of evolution running parallel to humankind. Millions of years ago, a brutal split occurred in the primate family tree. While one branch of human ancestors chose to stand upright, leave the dense forests, and walk across sun-scorched savannas, another branch turned away. It returned to the water. As tectonic plates shifted, this primate line moved deeper into the oceans and eventually chose the Antarctic abyss, the harshest waters on Earth, as its final habitat to escape the competition for survival. But how could a creature with primate blood survive beneath a thick shelf of black ice? Think about the pressure at the bottom of the Southern Ocean. At a depth of nearly 10,000 feet, the water pressure pressing down on the body is like stacking dozens of armored trucks on the chest of an adult human. Any ordinary primate skull would shatter in a tenth of a second. To survive in this kingdom of darkness and bone-crushing force, that primate branch would have been forced through a process of deep-sea gigantism. Their skeletons and muscle systems expanded to extreme proportions to balance against the immense pressure of the ocean, reaching lengths of nearly 100 feet. Beneath waters forever cut off from sunlight, the melanin that protects skin from UV rays became unnecessary and disappeared completely. Their skin lost its natural color, leaving behind a pale, ghost-white body. In exchange, their epidermal glands evolved to continuously release a mucus-like fluid containing antifreeze proteins, preventing blood from crystallizing in sub-zero water. Yet that extreme physical adaptation did not erase their core biological origin. They did not evolve backward into fish. They retained the most important primate traits needed to master the seafloor. Instead of having eyes on the sides of the skull to widen the defensive field of view like whales, Ningen's eye sockets face forward. In comparative biology, this kind of forward-facing vision appears in high-level predators, helping them judge distance to prey with precision. And the most haunting detail from former sailor Cato's account, the five-fingered hand, is the final and most perfect piece. That long hand with bending joints was not a mutated fin or a degenerative defect. It was a refined biological tool. Instead of simply beating the water like a fish fin, they used those 5 fingers to grip underwater cliffs, anchor themselves against violent currents, tear prey apart, and perform complex movements no whale could ever achieve. Once this is understood, the entire nature of JARPA II changes. Japan's public cover of whale conservation and research collapses, exposing a ruthless geopolitical performance. The elite scientists behind this fleet understood exactly what they were facing. The moment radar caught Ningen's thermal signature, they did not see a monster. They saw an invaluable biomedical goldmine. A primate species capable of surviving for centuries under deep-sea pressure would contain the biological secrets human medicine has always craved. To withstand freezing temperatures, its blood would need a perfect antifreeze protein structure. To resist crushing pressure, its muscles and cells would need a remarkable capacity for regeneration. Decoding and monopolizing that genetic sequence would mean controlling technologies tied to life extension, tissue regeneration, and the healing of physical damage in humans. This was a resource that could reshape the entire global pharmaceutical and military industry. The Nisshin Maru never accidentally caught a sea monster. It was a floating gene harvesting factory. The steel winch cables as thick as wrists were not built to drag fish. Their force and sharpness were calculated to tear flesh, to hunt the distant cousins of humanity itself. For more than a decade, under the perfect cover of the internet disinformation campaign called Ningen, this industrial fleet quietly turned the bottom of Antarctica into a giant primate slaughterhouse. But human greed always carries a deadly arrogance. Hunting a creature with an 80% primate genetic match is entirely different from butchering a herd of mindless whales swimming by instinct. If the Japanese fleet truly held exclusive control over a biomedical resource powerful enough to grant absolute advantage, why did they not keep exploiting it until the last creature was gone? What really happened beneath that black water, forcing a technological power to suddenly abandon a multi-billion-dollar campaign? withdraw from the International Whaling Commission, and flee Antarctica forever in the final days of 2018. In December 2018, the Japanese government made a decision that shook the global maritime world. It officially announced its withdrawal from the International Whaling Commission, or IWWC, and immediately pulled the entire JARPA II fleet out of the Southern Ocean forever. Tokyo officials appeared before the media and claimed the reason was compromise with environmental organizations. But that diplomatic cover was paper thin. For decades before that, despite fierce resistance from Greenpeace vessels at sea, despite pressure and economic sanctions, Japan had never backed down. So, why would a nation holding exclusive control over an invaluable primate gene biomedical resource suddenly throw everything away overnight? Underground maritime data from ship repair yards at the port of Shimonoseki revealed a much darker story. The industrial fleet did not retreat because of environmental pressure. It was forced to run. According to several leaked claims from port maintenance engineers, the damage on the ships returning from Antarctica in late 2018 went far beyond anything caused by collisions with drifting ice. Reports described multi-beam sonar systems mounted beneath the hulls being ripped apart completely. Steel cables used to winch up flesh had been snapped with intent, their edges frayed by a terrifying sideways force from the abyss. Most frightening was the propulsion system. Imagine the solid steel propeller blades of an 8,000-ton ship, designed to cut through thick ice, bent backward and twisted like plastic toys broken by a giant hand. Drifting ice cannot bend propellers at that angle, and mindless whales do not know how to target and disable acoustic detection equipment. The most terrifying truth about the entity called Ningen was not its nearly 100-foot body. It was the biological structure hidden inside its skull. An 80% DNA match with primates means it may have possessed a thinking brain. Ningen was not an animal acting on survival instinct alone, helplessly allowing humans to drop nets and cut it apart. It was a highly intelligent species. It lived in socially organized groups, communicated through complex sound frequencies beneath the pressure of the water, and most importantly, it could observe and learn from the very beings hunting it. After more than a decade of being massacred by the steel cable systems of the Nisshin Maru, this giant primate population had learned how humans operated. It remembered the exact engine frequencies and propeller rhythms of the JARPA II fleet. Once it identified the enemy, it began organizing tactical counterattacks. In the final years of the last decade, the Antarctic seafloor became a brutal guerrilla battlefield. The attacks from beneath the waterline were not frantic or meaningless. They struck directly at the critical weak points of a floating mechanical platform, break the propellers to take away movement, smash the underwater sonar compartments to blind humans in the darkness of the ocean, grip underwater cliffs, and tear steel cable nets apart to free their own kind. Japanese intelligence and scientific leadership realized what they were facing. They were losing a survival conflict beneath the sea against a creature with human-like tactical thought and the muscle power of a true sea monster. The situation had reached a dead end. Japan could not send naval destroyers or drop depth charges into Antarctica to exterminate them. Any militarization of those waters would immediately rip open the 2007 disinformation campaign, exposing the entire crime of primate gene poaching and the existence of Ningen to international light. Permanent withdrawal was the only escape left to preserve the secret before the industrial ships were broken completely and dragged down into the abyss. The psychological manipulation campaign built around the Ningen legend had done its job. It turned a parallel branch of human evolution into an internet joke, successfully hiding decades of bloody slaughter. But the brutality beneath Antarctica left behind a consequence that cannot be undone. Today, as global temperatures rise, Antarctica's ancient ice shelves continue to fracture and collapse. The silent natural habitat of the abyss is being destroyed day by day. What will happen when a nearly 100-foot primate species, armed with sharp intelligence and filled with memories of steel winches tearing flesh, is forced to leave its Antarctic territory? When its habitat runs out, will it quietly wait to die beneath the Black Sea? Or will humanity face it again when that pale body decides to swim north into crowded waters in search of a new place to survive at any cost? What do you think is the truth behind this story? Is there still something hidden beneath the surface that the world has not fully uncovered? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.